Hold on, chat. Hold on. Okay, let's get it going. All right, let's get started. Okay. All right. Microphone, roadcaster, speakers. Okay, let's do it. Hello.
Hello.
What's going on, guys? 1 second. I'm going to put you on my screen. You're live already. They can hear you, but before we do that, I'm just going to try and really quickly put you up on the screen. Very excited to have you here.
Thank you for having
today.
us.
Hold on. Boom. Okay, I think this works. All right. Hold on. All right. Okay. You guys can start talking if you want. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to have two esteemed guests here with me today on the broadcast. We got Danny Valdez from DSA and Dr. Jose A. Aronte. Am I saying that right? I'm sorry. How do I?
It's okay. It's okay.
How do I say it?
Say Armando Aronte. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Armando Aronte. Doctor, you're in Cuba right now, I believe, right? You're right?
Yes, I am in Cuba. Yes.
Yes. Right. So Dr. Aronte actually, as far as I understand, did medical missions with the Cuban government, both. And you have also spent time in Chicago too, right?
Yes, it's true. It's true, Hasan. Yeah, I was there in 2017.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that you were in America. Well, I guess it's gotten significantly worse since then, even. But Doctor, today I wanted to talk to you, and I want to thank DSA once again for arranging this this interview. But I wanted to talk to you today because Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, is currently in Jamaica and is actively trying to undermine the work that doctors such as yourself and the Cuban government is doing all around the world with these medical missions. And before we get into that specifically, I wanted to ask if you could describe these medical missions to those who might not know in my community.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me. And let me tell you that the corporation, the International Medical Corporation of Cuba, started in 1963 in Nigeria. Then we have been working abroad the country for more than 60 years. Specifically in Jamaica, I was working in Jamaica too. I was there since 2018, 2022. For me, it was a very important experience because we were working there. We have been working with the Cuban medical team there in the 4 regions of the country, of the island, and providing medical care to the primary care levels and in the hospitals, and even in the institute, the Cancer Center Institute and others. I remember in my experience in Jamaica in 2020 that when the COVID-19 pandemic, we received in only 7 days a medical team, Henry Relief Brigade, that was sent from Cuba with almost 140 Cuban health professionals. For Jamaica, it was a very important support because the health professionals of Jamaica, they were on that moment lack of health professional in different hospitals, in different health centers, and the Cuban medical team was a very important support for them.
Absolutely.
Regarding to the experience of the ideas that the Secretary of State Marco Rubio is talking about that human trafficking and others ideas. Of course, I not agree with him, because just if you are going to talk about human trafficking, just there are three conditions that are very important. The first one is that you don't know the country or the place where you're going to be taken. That is not the case of the Cuban health professional, because of course we know before departure the place where we're going to work, the country where we're going to work. Then that condition is not included in the classification. And the second one is just they are not allowed. They don't receive any payment. Let me tell you something that is very important to talk about this. When we go to work abroad the country to provide medical care to other peoples, we receive the whole salary in Cuba for our families. And in the countries that we are going to work, we receive a stipend. That is important just for the housing, of course, accommodation, the foods and others, the other thing that we need. But we receive them. The second one that we are not paying is not important, of course, not classified. And the third one is that when the human trafficking, the people can't move. Of course, when we are working in different countries, we can move to different places. Some of the country, of course, for the safety of the Cuban health professional, we try to make a control and just to be sure, but for our own safety in those countries. Then the three conditions are not included in this program, the International Medical Cooperation.
Yeah, and I just want to add that like we see this over and over again when you're in the Cuba Solidarity movement. Cuba does something incredibly solidaristic to the rest of the world by sending medical professionals, some of the best in the world, for almost nothing. And what happens is like the U.S. and its imperial allies and all that cynically cast it in the worst possible light and try to undermine it in every way possible. And part of that is because they don't want the example of Cuba out there in the world, but secondarily, they're actively seeking to undermine very important sources of funding for Cuba. We see that with the blockade overall, but now in the news recently, specifically with these medical missions, a long-standing hallmark of the Cuban, revolution and the way that it does its approach to governing, right, is I think really well embodied in the medical missions. And of course, the U.S. is just really cynical framing of it is just awful.
Yeah. They're lying in the simplest terms.
Yeah.
They're lying. And of course, they've always lied. I think if I were to approach this from a humorous lens, I think maybe it's because America doesn't understand the concept of exporting medical aid. They only know the concept of exporting weapons, bombs, and death dealing. Or rather, America also doesn't understand the concept of having... Chatters, I know my microphone is low. Can you please stop? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Embarrassing. There's 35,000.
Behave yourselves, chat. Behave yourselves. Come on.
America also does not understand the concept of socialized medicine in general, and I think this is part of the problem here because. Hold on, I'm gonna fix my microphone in a second because everyone is crying in the chat. But the reason why I say this is because you, doctor, you got your education paid for, I suspect, by the Cuban government, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, in Cuba, it's a universal educational program, of course, like a universal health coverage, covering the 100% of the population. And my parents, they were not rich persons, and I studied, but my medical studies were paid by the government, of course, and that's That's common in Cuba. See, just let me tell you something. In Cuba, in 1959, we have had only one medical school, and the leaders of the revolution, they understood very well that was necessary to graduate many health professionals. And then at the end of the last year, we have in Cuba 13 medical sciences school, 29 faculty of medical sciences, and the National School of Public Health, and the Latin American School of Public Health, where we have been graduating more than 30,000 medical doctors for different countries, including the United States of America.
Yeah. Like I said, Americans don't understand the concept of socialized medicine. They don't understand the concept of a free education either. So in their minds, and I'm sure you know this already, because since you've been in Chicago, and I do want to ask you about your experiences in America, especially as a Cuban person living in Cuba, they think there's a common thing that Americans say where it's like, oh, nationalized healthcare, that means we're going to enslave our doctors. Our doctors are going to be properties of the state. We can't have that. We must let the free market do its thing. What do you have to say to that?
Well, let me tell you that we feel in Cuba totally free. And then for example, when we go to work abroad the country in a mission, medical mission, we are as volunteers. Nobody is forced. The government is not forcing us to work abroad the country. And even in Cuba, when we are going to work to a rural area, because at the beginning, the first years of the revolution, 1959, just only we have in Cuba 6,000 medical doctors. But at the end of the last year, we have more than 80,000 medical doctors. Then we are working not only in the large city, even in the rural, very remote area. Then we feel like that we are not property of nobody. And then the health system is covering 100%, as I said before, and totally free. The medical care is totally free. Then it's covered by the government, the state too.
Yeah, I find it really interesting when people use that whole slaves of the state thing, because it's like that's what nationalized healthcare is, right? Like they're not slaves of the state, they are servants. And they're employed by the country's foremost public institution to do public good. And I think you're right, Hasan, like that is something that is so foreign to Americans that most people just like, oh, there must be some nefarious plot going on underneath or something like that. But the remarkable thing about Cuba and its successes, not just in medicine, but like across the board, like you compare Cuba to any first world country, and they're usually on par. And they do, when you think about the little we do with so much and how much Cuba is able to do with so little, and the reason they have so little is broad and complicated, but it's really remarkable when you think about it on those terms, how just a little bit of public investment and social good can really create a society and a culture where people have the things that they need, and that's the basic premise that they operate from.
I remember when I was working with the partnership as part of the team that traveled to U.S., to Chicago, Illinois, because the partnership with the University of Illinois and the Minister of Public Health in Cuba. I remember that we were thinking that we will face a very high developed health system covering 100% of the population, and really, I have to say that we were shocked when we saw many women that never saw OB/GYN during, or even any medical doctor during
OB/GYN.
OB/GYN.
Yeah.
Or the medical doctor, a general medical doctor during the pregnancy period. And then for us, it was a shock, because we were in shock, because that's normal in Cuba. And then in Cuba, we see the pregnant women more many times, even more than the World Health Organization requirement. And then we saw in Chicago, the African American community, we saw many women that during that period, it was impossible for them to see a dentistry. That's and then one of the costs of the low weight children when they born is just the sepsis and the infection of the health of the, and then that's for us that's why we was shocked for us that and many people that we saw there, even that they arrived to the health center or hospital, and then as they had not medical insurance, they were not received. They didn't receive the patient even with a chronic trauma, and then that was an experience for us. We were very impressed, but of course, because in Cuba, even with all the challenges that we are facing every day, the situation is very different. You have the medical doctor in your community, and the medical doctor and the nurse live within the community, that they are providing medical care. If you go straight to the hospital, it's that secondary level of the medical care. The health system takes you to the level that you need, or even if you go straight to the institute, the tertiary level, even the health system move you just to the level that you need.
What are some of the major challenges that Cubans are facing right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, the first challenge, the first one, is the blockade that was imposed by the government of the U.S. For more than 60 years, and recently, including the inclusion of including Cuba, our country in my country in the list of countries sponsors of the terrorism. Just to have an idea, after the decision of the inclusion, well, you know that including Cuba, go out Cuba, and including again, that's like a game of children.
Yeah.
It's not serious. That's my opinion. But after that decision, the first time, on the first week, more than 30 banks worldwide stopped all the transactions with Cuba. Even on the next days, 45 banks. That you know that it's not possible for us. For the health system, for example, as a result of that decision, we have been facing many challenges. Our population, well, the life expectancy in Cuba more than before COVID-19 was 78.45, but at this moment 77.1. But our people is we are moving the structure of the population, and then we have more elderly people, and then they have chronic diseases, they need medication, and then Cuba is able, with Cuba Pharma, the pharmaceutical industry that has been developing in Cuba, we are able to produce the 62% of the medication, the drug that we are to the basic work of the clinic, the drugs that we use in Cuba. But it's impossible because we can't receive credit from different countries, and then it's impossible to get the thing that we need to produce. But that's the most important challenge that we are facing.
Yeah, from what I recall, if I recall correctly, during COVID, there was a need for even vials being shipped into Cuba for the COVID vaccine that the Cuban government had developed, and that the trade embargo placed unjustifiable restrictions on even something like that, which was a major setback, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Even during COVID-19 pandemic, the measure of the government, the embargo, the blockade of the government of the United States was hard that before, even on that moment, it was impossible for us to get the vaccines, and then we have to produce our own vaccine. We produced 5 candidates. 3 of them were approved by the regulatory authorities that we have in Cuba, and was possible for us to stop the pandemic in our population. Even with that biopharmaceutical industry, we produce more than 70% of the drugs that we use in the protocols for the treatment of the COVID-19 with our own resources. And of course, based on the primary health care, the more than 11,000 doctors' office that we have at the primary care level, covering the 100% of the population. It's important just to mention the funds ventilator, the ventilator, the launch for the respiratory ventilators that even was sent. It was impossible for us to acquire then because the government of the U.S. put the sanction to the factories and the shipping lines that were trying to bring to Cuba. And then we have to produce our own ventilators. It's easy to mention that right now, but it was a very hard. We have to face a very hard situation on the moment with our main factory to produce oxygen was broken in the middle, in the peak of the pandemic, and then we have to look for the alternative challenge, different possibilities, just to try to solve and to diminish. Even on that condition, the mortality rate was lower than many developing countries worldwide.
Yeah, and I just want to reinforce a few things, because the number one thing I hear, or let's say the two things I hear when I talk to Americans, even progressive and people, about the U.S. blockade or the embargo or whatever you want to call it, is one, the most common one is, didn't Obama end the embargo? That's the most common one I hear. And the second one I hear is, oh, it's just affecting Cuba's trade with the United States. Why can't they trade with all the other countries all over the world? And the truth is, when you have the global economic hegemon sanctioning and threatening sanctions against people who do business with your island because they're on a state sponsor of terrorism lists, or whatever other set of sanctions or whatever BS they want to make up, it has extra national effects outside of the US and Cuba. And so, like those ventilators, I believe that the doctor mentioned, were coming from Sweden, and the U.S. had no involvement in that. But most of the money that flows through the world, because of the way the global banking system is set up through SWIFT and other things, most of the money goes through the United States, and the United States has actually sanctioned other countries and entities and companies in other countries because of that. So I think, like, Cuba is a country that has no credit on the global credit market. They're cut off. You tell me what country in the world could exist and function normally under a circumstance like that. And that's just one effect of that the embargo has. And you see here with the doctor, what the doctor's saying, it has impacts from the micro to the macro, right? Like, it is a policy designed to starve out the people of Cuba. And, you know, the designated purpose of the blockade is regime change, right? They want the people of Cuba to be so desperate that they change their government. But in 65 years, that has failed miserably as a policy outcome. So why are we continuing to do this? And if it is true that the Cuban government is corrupt, or socialism is deemed to fail, why do we have this comprehensive set of policies to strangle out this one island nation 90 miles to our south that could be a very fruitful trading partner to us, frankly? Like, you know, farmers in the South would love to sell their products to Cuba and buy Cuban products. Like we can't get the best rum and cigars in the world because of the embargo, right?
It's not just that.
There are lots of things.
There's a major issue in terms of medicine as well. Obviously,
yes.
Cuba has created a lung cancer vaccine, and that Americans actually have to illegally go to Cuba and get this lung cancer vaccine, as far as I understand. Right? There is the American government makes it illegal to go and get this lung cancer vaccine.
Yeah, so the opportunities for medical cooperation are huge, and the fact that like Dr. Arronte went to Chicago and participated, in seeing those patients, and a lot of them saying, "Hey, this is the first time I've ever had a doctor see me about any of these issues." Like there's so much opportunity. If you want to look at it from like a business point of view or a more like normie point of view, there's so much opportunity that's just being wasted for an totally outdated policy that is causing mass suffering. That's what's happening in Cuba. I think like rightfully Gaza gets a lot of attention, but also we should be looking at what's happening in Cuba because it's a different tentacle of the same monster, right? And enacting a slow motion genocide. But when you deny access to food, to basic staples, to medicine, through economic coercion of Cuba and other countries, what else do you call that? I mean, there's very little room for interpretation there, in my opinion.
Let me tell you something regarding to the inclusion of Cuba on the sponsor list of the sponsor of terrorist countries. Do you really think that the country that is able to do a product for other peoples worldwide have seen more than 2,300 million of patients in other countries, or 70 million of surgeries, or 5 million of deliveries? Our health professionals are working abroad the country, in other countries. We have been saving life, more than 12 million of life that have been saved by the Cuban health professionals. That is not a country, a terrorist country, of course. On the other hand, as I said before, our pharmaceutical industry produced the lung cancer vaccine. There is a clinical trial at the Roswell Park Institute in New York, but it's a vaccine that is produced in Cuba. How many patients in the United States of America could be able to receive that type of treatment if the relation between both people could be different? We have, for example, another one, medication that we produce in Cuba, Pro-P, for the prevention of the amputation in the diabetic foot ulcer, and we produce for many years in Cuba, and we are applying in different countries, but not in the U.S. Well, it's really many opportunities of bilateral cooperation, just trying to improve the health of the people, both sides of the both countries.
Yeah, America is a terrorist country. You
we're
don't
the
have
bad
to say
guys,
that.
sorry.
I'm saying that. I think that, and I believe that. I think it is.
And once again, like I said at the outset, it's so cynical to label Cuba like one of the most solidaristic countries in the world as a sponsor of terror. It's like an additional slap in the face on top of everything else. And every year at the UN for the past 32 years, Cuba presents a resolution to condemn and end the US embargo. And the last couple of years in a row, there have only been 2 countries to vote no again on that resolution. Can you guess the 2 of them? It's your 2 favorite countries, Hasan.
Let me guess. Israel and the United States of America.
Exactly right. Those
Shocking.
are the only 2 countries that vote negative on that resolution. And that, I think, honestly, I don't need to say anything else on the matter. I think like that very succinctly like wraps up where the imperial like allegiances lie in that case.
All right. I want to before I let you guys go, and thank you so much for coming on. And I was initially going to join. I'm trying to fix my audio levels while I'm speaking because Google is constantly trying to lower my audio levels here. But I was slated to visit Cuba with a legal mission, like a legal aid mission last year, but then a bunch of stuff happened and the election happened, so I couldn't do it. And I hope to visit one day.
Come with DSA. We do delegations now almost every year. We'd love to have you on the delegation.
One question I had for the doctor is when you were in Chicago, did you have deep dish pizza, and did you have a Chicago dog?
Well, let me tell you, the most important is the relationship that we were able to make with the health professional, with the people. Of course, Chicago is a beautiful city, and we enjoy the lake.
But did you have deep dish pizza?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but the most important is the people that and the health professional that we met there at the health center or the University of Illinois. For me, it was, as I said, amazing.
What was one aspect of American culture that shocked you that you didn't expect?
Well, during during the time that we have been working there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, but many people, well, they were asking us, please, can you stay for more time? Because we need to work together. And then the feeling that we felt, it was the cooperation feeling, not to reject even our English. It was not, of course, it's not our mother language, but was possible the communication. It was possible the communication, and then we were feeling both sides of the partnership. We were feeling very well, and the people, of course, we are the leaders of the community. The people that we visited were, for us, it was very important. For me, it was the first time. It was the first time that we saw the medical insurance health system. So the medical insurance system, different type of medical insurance. Of course, as
it shocked you?
In Cuba, this is totally free, and say, but even on that condition, we say that the team that were working there, we said that was working there, we said, okay, even on that condition, it's possible the cooperation, it's possible to improve the health level of the population.
Yeah,
and learning both sides of the cooperation.
Yeah, there are many parts of this country where foreign NGOs actually come in that normally work in war-torn countries or very poor countries in Africa, that come in and actually have to offer medical missions for free. Just like the Cuban medical missions, as a matter of fact. There are nonprofits that work specifically in places like West Virginia, because that's how dire the conditions are in the wealthiest country on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another joke question. Yoel Romero. What happened with that guy? Is this Cuban medicine?
It was a fighter, a boxing fighter that were training in Cuba, of course. and now we see him fighting in the different type of competition in US.
Yeah. Joe Rogan. Do you know who Joe Rogan is, Doctor? Do you know Joe Rogan he's a podcaster, very famous podcaster in America. He says Yoel Romero is a freak of nature. He's like unlike anything anyone has ever seen before.
Trained in Cuba, baby.
Yeah. The other person is I don't know how to say his name, but it's Mijain Lopez.
Okay, well, that's a symbol for us.
Yes.
No, 5 times he gold medal in 5 Olympic games.
He's incredible.
Yes, he's incredible. Yes.
What are they?
Yes,
what are they putting in the water in Cuba?
It's called universal public access healthcare. That's what it's called. That's what's in the water there.
He had a very good family doctors and nurses at the community where he lived in Pinal del Rio.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope to one day see you in person when I come visit Cuba.
And Hasan, before we go, I would be remiss as an organizer if I didn't make the hard ask. If this is just a small example of what DSA does around the country, we have an international committee where we have partnerships with countries all over the world and relationships with them. There's local work that you can do. There's electoral work. There's building the labor movement. If you're frustrated with the current state of Democrats plus in the U.S., you need a political home. Please. I couldn't recommend being in DSA enough. There's a lot of work ahead of us. We need to be organized around it. So go to joindsa.org. That's the easiest way to become a member. If you're not, yes, you will pay dues, but that keeps us independent. That keeps us doing the things that we need to do. So please join DSA if you have not. We need all 33,000 of you in this chat to join DSA so that we can
absolutely
get this country to a better place altogether.
Absolutely.
And that includes you, Hasan.
Yeah.
Become a dues-paying member.
Doctor, do you have a final message to America, to the Americans that are listening right now?
Sorry.
Do you have a final message that you want to
Well,
impart with us?
Let me tell you something. It's very important. On April, since 21st to 25th April, we will have in Cuba the Health International Convention, Cuba Salud 2025. It's a very huge function that we scientific convention, or many delegation from different countries, Ministry of Public Health, and many delegation, including United States of America. Every 3 years we do that, and then we invite you to the Health Convention, International Convention, Cuba Salud. Yes.
When is that?
And all the people, of course, all the people that are connected on this moment, and all the person that you know, maybe we should share with you the program and the orientation program for the important activity that we do in Cuba.
I mean, importantly, like going to Cuba,
it's a very good opportunity to visit the health system, to know about that.
No, I want to. The biggest problem for me is the internet. Because what I do requires like constant internet access, and it becomes really difficult because of the sanctions and things that we talked about before. Unfortunately, that's what I have to figure out. But I've been working on it, but I will do it for sure. Because most people go and they vlog, but I do live streaming, so it's in real time, like a real time newscasting. But definitely, it's something that I'm working on right now. Also, your site crashed, Danny.
Oh well.
Yeah,
that's your fault, probably.
Yeah, not probably. Yes, it is my fault. It is.
Yes, we may have crashed joindsa.org, but we will keep trying. I'm actually in the chat almost every day. I'm Cosmic Yan in the chat. So if anybody wants to DM me or whatever, I'm happy to talk about DSA, about joining DSA, whatever. And I will spam links also in there once we're done here. So
oh yeah,
really appreciate you having us on.
all right.
Hasan.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so
guys.
much. You too,
Bye.
man.
All right, that was very annoying on my end because of the Google Meetup restrictions that are virtually impossible to fix. I have been looking to try to fix it, but that was amazing. That was an amazing interview, and I hope you guys appreciated that. It's really important to be able to do these kinds of. It's really important to be able to have these kinds of conversations and directly talk to people that are on the other side of America's cruel sanctions regime, trade embargo.